Well, hello, everybody. Welcome in. JT here on behalf of the Ethfinance Daily General Discussion on our Ethereum. And, of course, thank you so much to the EV Mavericks. Today, we've got Kate Laurence from Bloccelerate. Say hello to the world, Kate. Good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
It's so good to have you here. I cannot wait to jump in with you and talk about Bloccelerate and everything that you're doing. But first, we got to continue with our intro. The Weekly Doots live stream is all about showcasing the best of the week from the Ethfinance Daily General Discussion and the rest of the community on our Ethereum. This is a read-along reaction series, and if you want to follow along, head on over to dailydoots.com, designed and produced by our very own Hani Abu. Big thanks to Tricky Troll for capturing and curating each of these days' Doots, and the A word for curating this beloved, most beloved weekly list. Make sure you subscribe to us on Apple, iTunes. Just search Ethfinance EV Mavericks, also available on Libsyn, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. After the show, you'll be able to mint this episode at pods.media/EV Mavericks. Don't forget to claim your POAP for the merge. We've only got about 3 days left. The proceeds of this are going to benefit the Protocol Guild. Let me go ahead and just pop that URL up so you can see this beautiful POAP here. We have 206 POAPs minted, a total transaction 207, and 0.3567 ETH. Heading on over to Protocol Guild. That is good through the 20th. All right, if you're watching my stream on Discord, make sure you mute that window to avoid any echoes. And as always, if you know somebody who wants a piece of this action, let's send them my way. All right, let's head on over to dailydoots.com to check out the rich list for the week. We have JS Tier sitting at number 10. I just went ahead. I'm going to be honest, folks. JS Tiers, our daily haiku guy, has never been on the Doots before. He was what I like to call a default duder. So I went ahead and just threw him 100 points. What do you say? He's been making a haiku every day until we reach, 0.178 on the ratio against Bitcoin or something. So he's been working hard at that. I figured it's time to get him on the rich list. Set one less at 105. Hani Abu at 105. Tied neck and neck. Crypto currency at 109. 696 ETH. At 111, Tricky Troll 137 climbing up, Hara climbing up 143, Benito 2030 at 160, Logri the Bard at 167, and Super Fizz, the almighty everlasting man himself, at the top of the leaderboard at 219. We have a few announcements. DeFi Dad is coming on January 24th, January 31st. We got Justin Big Dog Drake from a Beam Chain coming in, knocking down the house. Marcus Haas from the Ethereum Phone. Adam Bloomberg, certified financial planner from Interaxis. We're still praying for Vitalik. We're still praying that he could come on our 100th episode. If anybody's got any fairy dust out of the back of a unicorn they could throw his way to tell him we are alive and well and welcoming him, that would be sweet. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to get my mom, who's probably next in line after Vitalik. March 14th, Andy Lower from Scenario Protocol has been added to the list. And yeah, there we go. The Octant Epoch 6 allocation window is started now on January 11th. If you haven't had a chance to allocate your beautiful, most sacred GLM tokens, we hope that you'll throw them at the podcast. I think the Mavericks are doing pretty good. So good on us. And thanks for all of your support. Well, and then I guess finally we got to do our shit post of the week. Oh, we got to do a morning roundup. I spoke too soon. Tim Buck9 says Ethereum Frank the Tank chimes in a price 3367.45 and uses Bink video. We have added 2,624 users last time, bringing our grand total of hopefully mostly humans to over 3.5 million. And our weekly haiku, courtesy of JS Tiers. Holder gets older. Beholder needs to smolder. Reach stakeholder. How does he do it? JS Tiers, how do you do it? And of course, our ship post, because we always like to save the best for first, by user Bob Saget gets lover 420. He says, you know what we're doing wrong? We're talking about technological developments and use cases rather than just mindlessly posting threads titled, I want number go up and buy over and over like a certain subreddit. Clearly, they have the right idea based on price action. Well, This is going to bring us full circle. Kate, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for taking some time to join us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I am too, because I was cruising through your LinkedIn, and I saw that we have 3 connections in common. I saw we have
Just 3?
Dennis Lewis. These are all like second order people. Dennis Lewis, one of our favorite Mavericks in the world, Paul Brody, and Mary Lassity from the University of Arkansas. And I've met all 3 of those people, and they're all really lovely. And I was just right off the bat, I didn't know how you knew them, and if you've actually presented at University of Arkansas or met Paul at EY before.
I've met Paul before. To be honest, I haven't met the other 2, but my LinkedIn is out of control. I have more than 10,000 connections, I think, at this point. So the chances are I haven't met most of them.
I saw that. Well, it's pretty cool. So we've got this time right now, and I think Logri the Bard introduced you to the Mavericks, yes. And we're so delighted that you could join us today. Tell us a little bit about Bloccelerate, and tell us a little bit about your history.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, I am new to the EV Mavericks, but Logri, I'm a huge fan of him, and obviously he introduced me to the group, to the Reddit subgroup, and I've been following you guys for a while now.
Oh, cool.
So happy to be here. Maybe what I should start with is just a little bit of history on myself, because I think you'll find it interesting. As I came into the world of Ethereum, all of us have different paths, and sometimes we forget why we're here. And I try to remind myself what we're doing and why we started this in the first place. And speaking of Vitalik, obviously you have Justin Drake joining next week, which is a huge win. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
I can't help you with Vitalik, but I can probably help you with Joe Lubin if you're interested in having him.
Let's do it.
The third best.
Let's do it. It's Vitalik, and then my mom, and then Joe Lubin. How did you know? This is crazy.
That's right. Yeah. I would love to hear from your mom too, by the way.
She's early.
We have moms are in our Ethereum journey, and I'll tell you why on my end too. So I started my journey in 2014. I bought my first Bitcoin. That was less interesting, but in 2016, I was curious about Ethereum, so I started mining Ethereum. I was in San Francisco at the time, and I thought, what's the best way to learn about this technology? So mining seemed like a really natural path. San Francisco electricity prices are pretty expensive, so I ended up moving to Seattle, scaling from 1 GPU card to 12 GPU cards, and then Ethereum went from proof of work to proof of stake, and I had to fold my operation. But that was my entry point, if you will, into the Ethereum land. And then before that, interestingly enough, how did I even end up buying into crypto? Well, I was born and raised in Russia, actually in the Soviet Union. And in the first 5-7 years of my life, I've seen the collapse of the Soviet Union. I've seen 3,000% inflation that the country has gone through. Both of my parents were laid off. They had to start a business, and they had to go to borrow money at a bank. There was only one bank in my hometown, and they were lending money at 100% interest rate, and there was no other option to get capital. So they had to take what they could get. They borrowed money with 3,000% inflation. They went bankrupt a couple of times, and then finally in 1998, when they turned it around and the business started prospering, I remember we were building this beautiful house on the bank of a river. That was the year of the financial crisis in Russia. And if you know anything about the financial crisis, ruble devalued 60x. Pretty much all of our assets depreciated, and we had to start over again. And that is, I think, an experience that not a lot of American people had to go through in the last, say, 30 years, but quite a few people outside of the United States had to deal with similar trajectory. So when I first learned about Bitcoin and Ethereum, to me that was an obvious bet. It's a hedge. against your currency. It's a hedge against your centralized institution, against centralized banks, and a chance to buy into something that people cannot take away from you. And even 30 years later, I'll just tell you a quick story. My mother is still in Russia, and just a few months ago, the government froze her bank account. And she's a small business owner. She's not a terrorist. She's not on an OFAC list or anything like that. But they just froze her bank account because they claimed that she owed money to the government. And there's nothing she could do about it. And to me, that is such an important example of why we're building what we're building. The reason we're building what we're building is because we want unstoppable money. We want censorship resistance. We want unseizable assets. We want self-sovereignty. And in all of that jargon and all of that infrastructure talk and all of those, fancy meme coin trading, we forget really what we're here for. And I try to remind myself that this is why I'm here.
So when you have family members that are experiencing such crazy volatility in the value of the fiat currency, even compared to something as volatile as crypto, still, and when like crypto becomes the hedge, because that's a thing that, obviously I would say that a lot of people that are on Ethereum, subreddits or whatever, there's two realities. There's the US reality and then like everything else. And there's still this common thread of like, but at least we know there's something cryptographically provable when it comes to blockchains that's still valuable across the ponds to everybody, that compared to a centralized government fiat currency that's, at the whims of international monetary policies could just deflate or, inflate or whatever to incredible amounts of volatility. So this was a real galvanizing point in your upbringing, because you were in the home listening to mom and dad go through this, I'm sure with lots of tense arguments and probably dealing with people with the banks. I mean, that's got to be a lot for you to take in as a youngster, to grow out and be like, not for me, we're going to do something about this. We got to figure something out. So,
well, and obviously I'm one example, but I see so many people joining this industry for similar reasons. And it's not just folks from abroad,
Yes.
Everybody has their reason. But at the first ETH Denver that I went to in 2018, I heard a talk about unstoppable code. And this idea just stuck with me so much, because if you can build something that nobody has the power to stop, no matter who you are, no matter how rich you are, no matter how powerful you are, no matter whether you're a nation state or the Bank of England, you can't stop it. This has just not existed before, and this is the power of Ethereum, the power of blockchain, and that's why we're here for. And in fact, I actually I taught my mom how to mine. She's still in Russia. She's 70 years old. I taught her how to mine in 2017. And she could participate in this. And this is like the idea that you can spread participation to your mother, to your grandmother, and they can earn something for participating, aligning incentives. That's just beautiful. So that's just a little bit about me.
Did you ever have to, she'd call you because she had a problem, you're like, Mom, just hit the reset switch. It's fine.
All these years later, I'm still struggling to join Discord channels. After
listen, this isn't a AAA television network broadcast, right? So we start when we're ready around here. We're easy. Right. We're easy. And so fast forward, you're mining. You've seen your parents struggle through the financial system in Russia, and you've invested. You've been to the conferences. You mentioned ETH Denver in 2018. I don't know if you're going to ETH Denver this year, but I'll be there.
Yeah, I would, but I'm 8 months pregnant, so I'm gonna skip this one. But I
That's probably
generally
that's probably a good conference to skip. Congrats on the pregnancy. It's worth more than the conference for sure. Do you have kids
trust me, I'm
already?
gonna.
Can I might as well
Yeah,
ask you.
I have a 3-year-old, but I'm sure that of course I'm gonna have a lot of FOMO this time around because the markets are going up and everybody's getting excited and things are pumping, and of course I'm gonna be sitting there at home, not
Well,
with.
I don't want to. I do cook a barbecue there every year for about 80 to 100 people at a need to know basis location.
Thank you. I'm already having FOMO, and you're making it worse.
Well, the price is going up, so now we're going to have to do 2 barbecues. But don't worry, the food's terrible. It's always cold and the beer is flat, so you're not missing anything.
I'm sure. Yeah, next year.
So Bloccelerate, when did you open the doors to that? Tell me a bit about your partnerships with your employees and co-owners, and what you're working on.
And I heard that you haven't had VCs on the show before. Is that right?
We've never had a VC before. I mean, not as a specific. I mean, there's people that have been on that have funded things, but I don't think we've ever had a proper VC firm on here before. So this is new for me, and it's great to hear your perspective.
Well, VCs in crypto don't have the best reputation right now, so.
Well, so far you're unblemished. You're perfect. So there you go. We got one.
So at least I'll try to shed some light into what it's like to be one, and that we're not all bad. But I opened the doors in 2018. Prior to that, I was working for a publicly traded company. I was also on the venture side of traditional Web2 VCs. So had a choice to join them, but really wanted to do crypto, and they were not doing crypto at the time. So I started with a modest $1 million in LP commitment, and that was raised really quickly within 2 weeks. That was the peak of the 2018 bull market, if you remember. And I thought,
those are good times.
This is going to be easy. This is going to be a walk in the park. I can do this. 100 million, let's go. And then we entered the bear market, and that was a dry spell for like 12 months. Impossible to raise money. Everybody thought crypto is a scam. Nobody knew what blockchain even was. And hell, let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
I'm sure founders can resonate with that. Long story short, persevered through that, closed the first fund in 2020, ended up deploying that and raising the second fund, closed it last year, and now we're almost deployed through the second fund, launching the third fund, getting to close to 100 million assets under management. So it's, you always see the shiny side, the successes, but you don't see the struggle. But I can tell you that there's a lot of struggles that as a VC you had to go through if you wanted to raise money through 2 bear markets, and that's pretty much what we've been doing in the last 6-7 years.
I always say on Reddit, real quick, bear markets are where your best friends are made for the bull run ahead. And, I don't know if that resonates, like the people that you help that can weather through that storm, come out the other side a lot stronger and maybe even a better product than they would have had otherwise. But go ahead.
I see Laurence is on here. Laurence and I met in 2022, I think. Actually, we met the day FTX collapsed, funny enough. And we're still friends, good friends. So here you go.
Yeah, he's one of our champion EV Mavericks and a friend of the podcast, a very knowledgeable person on just about every topic you can imagine. So yeah, he's a good person to know.
I'll say Kate has helped me know a lot more just because she's like, "Hey, have you ever heard of this random thing?" And I'm like, "No, let me research that for you."
There you go.
And then so gives me a good excuse to jump into areas of the ecosystem I haven't heard of and become informed on it. And of course, I come back and write about it and share it with our Reddit. So everyone benefits.
That's right. Yeah. And Laurence is one of the smartest people I know. So always happy to send ideas his way. So I think you asked about Bloccelerate journey and what we're invested in. I think I shared the journey, but I haven't shared what we're investing in yet.
Yes, go ahead.
So let me start with some failures, something that we've learned, and I guess again, everybody's talking about their successes, but not a lot of people talking about the mistakes. So when we started, we thought we had a specific idea of what the future is going to be like, and it's actually similar to the previous guest on your podcast. I think Brian, his name is. He talked a lot about how he started with block apps and went down the whole enterprise blockchain path and permissioned ideas. In fact, I was one of the first investors in block apps, so I know block apps pretty well. I still am on the board of block apps. That's how I know Joe Lubin, because Kieran is his son, and he runs block apps. So a lot of us, including Consensus and including Joe Lubin, and even including Vitalik, were proponents of enterprise blockchains early on, because we thought enterprises are going to embrace blockchains, but they're not going to embrace it in a public way. So they're going to launch and spin up their private permission networks, and that's all going to be great. But as it turned out, none of that worked. And there was a lot of talk among enterprises about embracing blockchain, but in reality, they all wanted to make money from crypto. So when bear markets came, the interest to embrace blockchains kind of died down, and there were no money to be made, so they switched to other things.
Yeah.
So that was the first learning. The natural success, I guess, the natural winning path from that was uncovering infrastructure in general, because infrastructure touches both enterprise and crypto native Web3 companies. So we ended up spending more time on security, on middleware, interoperability, and we ended up investing in the early rounds of QuantStamp, which is now one of the leading smart contract audit firms. Later invested in companies like LeFi, which is cross-chain bridging, bridge aggregation, and ZK stuff, a lot of interesting companies that touch more on the infrastructure stuff. Stumbled on restaking by meeting Sriram in 2022. I was in Seattle at the time. I thought he was a crazy professor who's just got these crazy ideas that will never come to life, but stayed in touch with him and followed the whole restaking path. Ended up investing in EigenLayer and then later Babylon on Bitcoin, and then naturally dove into the whole rabbit hole of restaking, with some investments now in liquid restaking tokens, in layers on top of Babylon like SetLayer, and a few others. So I think, like everybody else, we have our journey. We start in a place and we think we know everything, and then over the course of years we realize that we know nothing, and we just need to keep an open mind and follow smart minds, and that's pretty much what kept me afloat for now.
I feel like, if you can weather those storms, those up and downs, you've been through a couple of cycles, you've seen companies come and go, you've seen what works, what's not working. You start to realize quickly what sticks to the wheel of success in this industry and what's going to make it, potentially long term. And it sounds like you've figured out a way to kind of navigate that beat a little bit. Your company started in 2018. I'm sorry if you already said this. You started it in 2018. Did you have a co-founder that same year? And then how many people do you have now current? Because I saw the people on your webpage is over a dozen now.
Yeah, so I started it, and then I met Sam Yilmaz. He previously was
okay.
Yeah, he's an OG in the crypto space. He started as a part of the dApps fund. Before that, he was on the board of Mastercoin. If any of you remember Mastercoin, then you're definitely OG in crypto, because that was like the first ICO That was the first ICO that happened before Ethereum, I think even. Vitalik was contributing code to Mastercoin back in the day.
Yeah, he was writing articles in Bitcoin Magazine too.
That's right. Yeah.
I can't remember what he was getting paid per article, but it's like it's ridiculous, like amounts of money these days. He was just tinkering along, having fun. You were writing, I saw on LinkedIn, the 3 predictions for 2025. One being the stablecoin renaissance. Number 2 is DPIN goes mainstream. And number 3 is the first 100 million ARR company run by one person. Let's dive. Do you want to dive into those 3 parts, or is there one part in specific you'd rather expound on? This 100 million ARR thing caught my attention.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So just to be fair, not to plagiarize on other people's ideas, those are not original to me.
That's fine.
What I mentioned in the post is that I hosted a launch for founders in Singapore in September during Token 2049.
Yep.
And I asked them a question, give me one prediction for 2025. And I wrote them down. I had 20 predictions. And I want to say probably half of them already came through. From Trump being elected to Gensler stepping down, Bitcoin crossing 100K. There was one prediction for Bitcoin staked crossing $1 billion. If you looked at how much Bitcoin has been staked now, it's close to $6 billion. So it's actually a pretty good, smart group of folks who came up with those, and I don't want to take credit for their predictions. But what I said is, let me pick 3 others that I think are going to come through in 2025, and I picked stablecoin, DPIN, and AI. There was there were 2 others that I wanted to include, but then I thought that would be too many. So I can cover on 3 and then add a couple more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, just to let everybody know, on YouTube and on Discord, I'll put the link to this article. If you want to follow her on LinkedIn, it's where a lot of these posts are. So go ahead, Kate. Thanks.
Yeah. So again, not original to me. A lot of people have been talking about it, but it's everybody knows that if you were to think, what's the one killer app in blockchain right now that you can point to? Stablecoins would be the one. What's the one app that has product market fit? Stablecoins would be the one, right? You can argue about a couple others, but really you can't argue about stablecoins. Stablecoins is the killer app so far of crypto.
100%.
So the idea that you as a company, as a TradFi institution, as an enterprise, you can launch your own stablecoin. You can offer it to your customers and assume you have 100 million customers out there, and you can get them to transact in that stablecoin. And assuming the treasury yield is more than 0, every basis point is essentially revenue to your balance sheet. So why would you not do it? Why would you give this yield to Circle or to somebody else? And that is naturally came from a conversation with the founder. If any of you heard Bastion is a platform. The founder came from A16Z, and he's essentially doing stablecoin as a service platform now for all of these institutions. We have a portfolio company called Stably. They've been around for a while. If any of you heard of Stably, the idea is the same. You can use a stablecoin issuance platform to issue your own stablecoin. Obviously, the jury's still out on what the stablecoin regulation is going to look like and whether or not these stablecoin issuers can pay out yield to the customers. But I think regardless, the companies have incentives to launch the stablecoins. And I don't need to tell you why stablecoins are superior to fiat, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, what was the?
It's funny though, isn't it? How in order for the government to protect investors, they're forcing stablecoin issuers to deny those investors their interest on their own money.
That's right. Yeah.
Isn't that so protective, right? Like, doesn't that help so much, right? It's a really perverse. It's like Ministry of Truth level of inversion, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for protecting me from airdrops where people are just literally giving me money. Thank you for protecting me from interest on my own money, right? I feel so protected.
Or you need to be a accredited investor to be able to earn that, right?
Yeah, only rich people are allowed to earn the money. You poor as you are not.
That's right.
It's really messed up.
Yeah, no, that is messed up. And that's why USDC Coinbase hasn't been able to pay out yield. USDC hasn't been able to pay out yield, but Coinbase paid out yield through some other program where they cleared the regulatory burden on that. But again, regardless, stable coins are growing. Companies are issuing stable coins. We're going to see more of those. The second one is Deepin, and Logreen actually spent some time chatting about it. I know Logreen wrote a few posts about it. And last week we were thinking through the topic of Deepin, specifically what is it within Deepin that we're bullish on? Because frankly, I'm not bullish on every single category in Deepin. Am I bullish that Uber is going to be decentralized tomorrow by a protocol and we're going to see that take off? Maybe not. But what makes a lot of sense within Deepin are categories that are growing already today, where there's a lot of demand. And what are those categories? One is compute. Because of AI, inference, training, there's a lot of demand. And there's a lot of Web 2 alternatives that are growing. So we need Web 3 competitors that offer compute capabilities, but in a decentralized way. So that's number one. Number two is energy. If you look at energy consumption right now, it's already strained in terms of the demand that is coming from these data centers. If we assume the models are getting more complex, the energy requirements to run those models also are rising exponentially.
Well, and soon every time NVIDIA makes another card off the factory, there's more power draw, right? And look at how fast those cards are being made, right? People aren't really deprecating A100s right now. They're just bringing on new cards, putting them in the data center, trying to turn them on. And so, yeah, energy. And then you see companies like Microsoft, Google, they're now making their own power plants. You're not doing that. You're not, as a company, you're not doing that if the public utility would service it. And
that's right.
And as a company, you're not doing that if you think AI is going to be a 4-year bubble, right? That's a 20, 30-year investment. Like, these are long horizon bets that we see multi-billion, trillion-dollar corporations making.
Well, and the point, even if they're building their own data centers, they still need energy to power them. And at this trajectory, in a few years, there's just not going to be anything that's going to power these data centers unless you have nuclear reactors. And we know that U.S. is not very capable of building those fast. There's only a few of them in the world, and China is better at it than U.S. So what's the potential answer? Is decentralization could be an answer to the energy crisis that we're going to face. And then the third one is bandwidth, naturally. Those three go hand in hand with growth of AI, growth of GPU requirements, and for that reason, three Deepin categories that I'm personally bullish on. So that's the second. The third one, I would say the first one is mainstream stablecoins. We know a lot of people are talking about stablecoins. That's not a novel prediction. Deepin is sort of mainstream, half mainstream, I would say. The AI one, that's probably a controversial one, not because AI is not hot, but can we create a company that is making $100 million a year that is run by one person?
Yeah, I think it's it's possible. I mean, nothing's impossible. I mean, as long as inflation is a thing too, eventually that's going to happen regardless. I think, if the value of the dollar keeps going down, somebody could make 100 million with just one person. I'm wondering.
Just buy a $1 billion company and then shrink it down to one person.
Fire everybody.
Solved.
That's one way to make $100 million company. That's right.
We just got $900 million worth of people that made this place great. But look at me.
Free alpha. There you go.
I made it to the books, Mom. Great job. Oh, man. 2025. we've got a new incoming president in the United States. If we could talk policy, not politics, what makes you bullish and what makes you bearish coming ahead in terms of regulation, things like the SEC? Do you feel like the climate is really going to be better? Or were those just talking points to change up the political landscape, or do you think there's a lot of teeth behind it to enable capital formation, at least from a U.S.-centric point of view? Do you have any other insights for other nations that are like El Salvador? Obviously, I think USDT maybe is moving there. I don't know if that was AI telling me that's what's happening, but what are your thoughts on that?
So I want to answer that question, but there's another topic I think we should cover if we have time.
Of course.
And that is, and we have a lot of builders here. You obviously invite a lot of app developers to this podcast. And the natural question they should be asking themselves is, should they work with VCs in general? And since you haven't had VCs here, and VCs have a mixed reputation right now, I thought it's important for me to give a perspective on that.
Great.
Do you want me to start with that, or I can quickly cover that?
That's perfect. That's a great idea.
Okay. All right. So I think what's going on in the crypto VC landscape is fucked up right now. I just have to open with that.
Okay.
And with that in mind, let me just say a few good things about VCs, and then we'll talk about why I think it's fucked up. Number one, why we're good, right? Some VCs actually add value. Not all of them, but some of them do. And the reason they add value is just because they have networks. They have multiple portfolio companies, they have access to their customers, they have powerful LPs. So if you find the right VC who knows your industry and can help, it is not a bad thing. That's number one. Number two, some people say VCs dump on your token, but so do retail investors, right? So who do you want to be holding your token? Do you want VCs to be holding your token, or retail, or both? And one thing to keep in mind, and I'm not sure if you know how VCs work, but we have 10-year lock on a fund. 10 years is not a short period of time. So we don't have necessarily pressure to liquidate your token as much as retail investors do. And it doesn't mean that VCs don't liquidate the token, but they have less of a hurry. And you want patient capital to be on your cap table. Like, that's not a good thing. Let's just get the good things out of the way, then we'll talk about the bad things. 3, why do you want to have VCs on your cap table is some of them bring good reputation. So if you want a stamp of approval and you want to show that somebody who's looked at thousands of deals picked your deal as a VC backable company, having a group of a cohort of VCs on your cap table could be helpful. I'm not saying anything new. That's why people have been going to VCs, not just in Web3, but in Web2. Okay. So now, why is it fucked up? So in the last 3 years specifically, crypto VCs raised a shit ton of money. And I mean billions of dollars. Like, it was a period of time where everybody was throwing money at crypto VCs, every institution, pension funds, and they have a lot of money to deploy. They have a lot of money to put to work. So we ended up with the mega funds. Not going to name names, but everybody knows them. If you run a $700 million crypto fund, you have pressure to deploy $700 million over 3 years. What does that mean? Are you going to write $1 million checks into companies? That sounds like a lot of work. Nobody likes to do work, hard work in VCs, right? So they're going to pressure founders to take 10 plus million checks, sometimes 20, sometimes 30. Andreessen, in our case, with Eigenlayer, they invested $100 million. Does Eigenlayer need $100 million in order to be successful? Probably not. Monad, I don't even know the numbers, but multiple hundreds of millions of dollars. And this is fucked up because I have seen founders, and I have seen founders change the moment they get a lot of money.
Yeah.
And in my experience, the number one thing that can kill a founder and they can kill a company is to give that founder too much money. It doesn't mean every founder is going to fold. It doesn't mean every founder is not going to be able to keep up with the pressure of taking $100 million. Look at Sriram, he's doing just fine. But a lot of founders will, and I have seen that personally happen. Number two is when you take $10+ million from a VC, the same VC has to mark up their investment, and they want to mark it up 12 months later. So what do they pressure you to do?
Generate a profit as soon as possible.
No, they pressure you to take more money from another investor at a higher valuation.
Oh, okay. So it's like
it's a house of cards. It's like eventually it's going to collapse, but they just don't want that person. They just want to buy enough time so that they can raise another fund, and then it doesn't matter if you die. Like, again, not all VCs are bad, but this is just this system within which we live, and you have to recognize that. So as a founder, if you're pressured to take $10 million, just know that less than 2 years from now, you're going to be pressured to take even more money.
Ugh.
And if you're pressured to take more money, then you're probably not going to say no to that. Then you're going to go with that, and then your expectations go even higher.
Why? Yeah, but why are they shoveling all this money into founders that they're already got?
They're shoveling into the projects, not just the founder, right? It's not just they're just giving a bag of cash to the founder and saying like walk away, right?
Sure.
They're saying, well, I've got $1 billion to deploy. I can't manage 1,000 different projects, so I can't just make $1 million check sizes because I wouldn't be able to deploy the funds, right?
Right.
So I have to keep it manageable for it's like if I go to a dating website and I need to pick out some cute girls, right, in my area, right? It's there's a limit to the cognitive attention span, and so we start using these strict numeric filters, like, oh, they have to make this much money or have this much, have to be this tall or whatever, right? You get it down to a manageable set before you start reading all the details, right?
Yeah.
So how do they get it down to the manageable set? One of the strict numeric filters they can use that's very easy, the equivalent of height in the VC world, is what's the check size? Like, what's the size of the deal? And then I'm going to focus my attention on the largest deals, right? And so if you come with a very small idea, it's kind of hard to get funding this way when they're flush with cash. But if you come with a very big idea with great ambition, then they load a bag of cash on you. But then 2 years later, they're going to load an even bigger bag of cash because they want to get a higher valuation because it's paper gains, right? That they might not have a token at all, it might not be liquid in the slightest, but it's all based on the last raise that you did. What percentage of the equity went out, and what was the valuation on that equity? And then that becomes the paper gains of all the other of all the funds. So the next time they go to raise a fund, they can say, look, here's what our existing fund is up. It's up 500 and whatever percent. Don't you want in on this next fund that we're going to start, right? So they're building their reputation off the paper gain.
There's another problem that comes from this. What are the categories that warrant 100 million plus checks? Like, think about it. What are the categories in crypto that warrant large checks?
Stablecoins, infrastructure. Yeah, that's the big ones, right? You'd say things like power, right? Energy as a sector, money as a sector, DeFi as an entire sector, certainly, right? I'd say replacing the whole finance system.
But I would argue infrastructure warrants the most, because look at the infrastructure coins, look at L1s, look at L2s. They're the ones that are creating, 10+ billion market caps, not necessarily the apps. And then everybody's wondering why applications are not getting funding. Well, the total addressable market on one application is not as big as on an L2 or an L1. So these funds end up skewing the market towards more infrastructure, and then we end up with a lot of block space and not a lot of applications to fill it. There's also another problem, which is, now imagine a project that raised $100 million at, let's say, 600 million valuation. What are the chances that project is going to go and hit the market at an FDV less than 1 billion? probably low. And then how do you make a crypto project successful? You have to build a community. How do you build a community? You have to make people rich. You have to make your community rich. How do you make your community rich if you launch a project at $1 billion valuation? You can't. You make them poor. They buy in.
There's no price appreciation. Yeah.
Exactly. So. And if you look at the successes, look at Ethereum, look at even Chainlink, like they did not do these large rounds. They did not launch at crazy valuations. They made a bunch of people money, and that's how they won followers. That's how they won the community. And that's what I'm trying to tell all of our portfolio companies. Stop raising money from VCs. Launch a token, even if it's a low valuation. At least you'll get people in early. They'll get excited, and then they will stay with you for the long run. So this is my quick spiel on why it's fucked up in the crypto landscape right now.
I was just going to ask you, what are some of the most successful VC funded projects in crypto history that were done ethically?
Probably.
Yeah. So you said it yourself, like Chainlink, for instance. So are there any others that are good models of behavior that you would like to see VCs participate in that approach?
In general, everything that happened in the previous market, in the previous cycle, we just did not have that much money as a venture space. So even if you look at Uniswap took their seed round from Paradigm in 2018. Do you know how big that seed round was?
I don't.
Something like $1.8 million.
And then, not to cut you off, but going back to your $100 million for a one-person company, didn't Uniswap get to $1 billion valuation with like 11 people or something?
Billion valuation, by the way, is different from 100 million revenue. So
gotcha.
I think you're right. There is probably something similar to that. I know that Uniswap, I was just catching up with their head of growth. They're doing more than 300 million in revenue this year.
They're like the Blair Witch Project of crypto, like the small amount of money, big returns at the box office.
Those are the best ones, and we can't have those if everybody's throwing tens of millions of dollars at you. Like, you just don't have the discipline that you need in order to execute with small amount of resources for the results that you need. You don't need a lot of money to launch a project. I would argue $1.8 million, even with inflation and depreciation of dollars, is still enough. Right.
Yeah, this is... it make me nervous to have a ton of money in my pocket expecting to do something that's like so beyond the valuation. You're right though. It's just as when I went to ETH Denver, I was working with Grid Plus at the time, the hardware wallet Lattice One. I did all the video work for them. I still actually just wrapped up a video yesterday. And I remember being a booth babe at ETH Denver 2022 or 21, I can't remember which. And there's a lot of nice looking suits coming up asking if we were looking for capital and looking to, and I was like, I don't know, I'll have you talk to the CEO at the time, and away they went. But, it's just, and I have no idea if they structured a deal or anything, but it was just, you're right. There was a time when it was just really frothy and a lot of people just trying to park money anywhere they could into as many projects as possible, throwing a ton of money around. And fast forward rewinding back to the original question. Do you feel like 2025 with regulatory, what are the regulatory insights looking like for you in your line of work moving forward as a VC in the crypto space? Are you excited?
Yes, so there's a lot of things to be excited about, of course. And I'm, by the way, here just outside of Washington, D.C. I don't know, where are you, Jeremiah?
I'm in a lonely building somewhere in the Kansas City area.
Okay. I'm not in a lonely building. We're actually going to have a big crypto bull with Trump inauguration weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, the whole weekend is going to be pretty crazy. Everybody is coming out of the woodworks. People that you wouldn't have expected, like Brock Pierce, is flying to
Oh my gosh.
to Washington D.C. I know. I haven't heard that name in a long.
Is that EOS? Is that where he was famous for?
Yes.
I mean, he's infamous for other things, but I mean.
Yes, that's the one. Anyways, so there's a lot of, I think people are overly excited, so I'm going to cool it down a little bit. So of course, what we've just gone through in the last 2 years is absolutely horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
And it cannot get worse. Even if we didn't get Trump, I don't think it would have gotten worse than it is. So things are looking up. I think people's expectations are a little bit ahead of the curve. Because in reality, we have 2 years to make it happen. It is a good chance that in 2 years things will flip, if not completely, then partially, and it's going to be much harder to pass law. So what can you realistically do in 2 years? Well, inauguration is just now coming up. Next, what is it, Monday?
Yeah.
And we're already almost done with January. So now you have 23 months to get it done. Then you're going to make appointments. Then people need to get up to speed. People need to come up with things that make sense. So by the time you actually have meaningful regulation to even be presented, that's already going to be the end of the term. And then the House and the Senate will flip.
Well, I think, okay, alternative narrative. You're not wrong on legislation, right, specifically. But, Gary Gensler is going to be gone before the end of the month, right?
True.
And the replacement, Hester Pearson, they've had months/years to consider what they would change if given the opportunity. They're not starting from scratch on what they would change. They can drop the lawsuits. There's like 7 lawsuits that are open against the U.S. Crypto giants. They can just drop all of those, right, and pull all the court cases. They can reverse certain things like the SAP regulatory, or the one that Biden vetoed, right? That was changing how the banks had to account for crypto holdings. They can stop just discouraging banks from serving crypto customers. Just as a stop saying these weird letters that Coinbase open sourced recently, right?
Mm-hmm. Operation Choke Point.
And none of those things require any regulation or legislation to change, right? So I think we can start to see just an optimistic people willing to take more risks and just try things, and then be with the assumption there's going to be more grace given if the regulation does come. And also, I think we're going to see more inclusiveness from the SEC on when the rulemaking is happening, engaging with the industry to make sure that what they're proposing and even what they're asking of Congress to propose, because I know that's part of what Hester Pearce is going to do, is it's going to make recommendations to Congress for what laws or what things they don't think the SEC should solve with just clarifications with rulemaking. So I think we'll see better engagement across the board from well-intentioned participants, rather than this regulation by enforcement kind of like, we're going to create a cloudy or foggy environment and then use the confusion to try and attack our foes type of dark forest bullshit in the last 2 years.
I cannot tell you how many founders I know who got Wells notices last year.
Yeah.
Oh, it's wild. Yeah. And everyone's kind of quiet about it, right? It's like a Me Too movement at this point. Right? Everyone comes out like, I got a Wells.
The Wells notice was just the scariest crap for people. They're like, they just put their hands up and be like, I'm done. I'm not messing with this. Oh,
I don't blame them.
Over 10 years, look at how much innovation has left the U.S., right? Go to the Electric Capital Report. Look at the share of development that's inside the U.S. It has been monotonically falling. We're no longer even like, we're no longer, it's not even just Asia ahead of us. There's another, I think Europe was ahead of us and Asia's now ahead of us now, right? Of the U.S.
Yeah.
It's wild.
I think I saw a tweet earlier today from Mike Dudas. I don't know if you follow him.
Yep.
But he said that anecdotally he's been chatting with a lot of founders who are now moving their headquarters to the U.S.
Good.
And that's a really good sign. I think that's what we need. And just the lack of threat of a Wells notice itself, even if they do nothing. Imagine they pass no laws, no legislation, just the lack of that threat, I think alone encourages people to move back.
Have you ever met Caitlin Long from Wyoming?
In passing, I know obviously who she is, but haven't met her personally.
They denied her a fully reserve bank, as in would make no loans, would just escrow customer money. The least risky possible thing, and the SEC shut her down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I feel like change is a coming, and the future ain't what it used to be. And I'm really looking forward to meeting you someday in person. I hope that everything in your firm continues to go up and to the right. I feel like the foundations of Kate Laurence from Bloccelerate are rooted deeply in knowing what could be a problem for the even people in the United States eventually if we don't figure out how to communicate, decentralize the things, and have everybody work together on a blockchain type based society just to get a few of the truths in motion. And it's a cool industry, and it's exciting I'm excited for you. And is there anything else we didn't cover that you want to mention?
I'll just add one last thing to the last,
Sure.
because I started with the fact that I escaped Russia, right, to come to America. I believe America is the best place in the world, despite all of its problems. And I still truly believe it. But what happened in the last 2 years, what we're talking about with Operation Choke Point, with founders getting Wells notices, with bank accounts being closed, that reminded me of my home country so much. I can tell you how that is exactly the things that were happening there. And I saw this trajectory that we're going down the wrong path as a country. And it just cringes everything within me because I love this country so much and I don't want this to end up in the same regime that I've grown up in, because I've seen the worst of it. So I want to end on an optimistic, not a pessimistic note. I think that the worst is behind us. I think that freedom prevails, and I think that freedom is rooted so hard in this country and the people here that you can't, no matter, even if you try for 2 years to squeeze it to take it away from people, it just comes right through. And I think that's ultimately what happened in the last few months. People stood up against it. And you can be a Trump supporter, you can be a Trump hater. It's less about him in my mind. It's more about a broader system and exposing a broader system and crimes, what I think are crimes, really, that took place in the last 2 years to the world, and hope that's never going to happen again. Those crimes are much worse than what we've seen with FTX collapse and what everybody's talking about with crypto scams. I don't love them, but the crimes of taking people's liberty away is much worse.
They're afraid people are going to get out of the financial prison. They're like, what are you doing? Get back in the box. Right?
That's right. Yeah.
And if cash was proposed as a new technology, they absolutely would have shot that down, right? There's no way with the attitude of the last 2 years they would have allowed, peer-to-peer private monetary transactions. Like, oh no, that's usage fund drugs and terrorism and da-da-da. Right? You just hear it on the Senate floor. I don't even have to quote a name there. There's no way that they would not allow us to have the freedoms that we have today with the culture today, right? That we got them because they're kind of grandfathered in. But that just shows the trajectory of this nation. And I totally agree. I hope the worst is behind us, just as at least in the short term. I hope that the pendulum swings the other way.
Well said. I was looking at your Twitter feed here for people that want to follow you, but I saw a headline that kind of fits this tailwind of this conversation. According to X.com, Wyoming and Massachusetts move towards Bitcoin reserves. The headline is Wyoming and Massachusetts have introduced legislation to establish strategic Bitcoin reserves, allowing up to 10% of state funds to be invested in Bitcoin. This move signifies a growing acceptance of crypto within state governments. Coinbase has endorsed the concept of a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve, reflecting broader industry support for integrating digital currencies into the national financial strategies. Kate, is the West leading the crypto narrative? I think there's been a bit of a change. We'll see what happens. If the world is everybody's oyster, we'll see where the direction goes. But that sure sounds incredible.
Yeah, well, that's a step in the right direction. I think that it should be more than 10%, and I think Ethereum should be 10% alone.
I agree.
But I'll be working on that.
Excellent. Yeah, it's very good. All right, very good. So if you want to follow Kate on Twitter, you can follow her at K_Laurence_, and she's right there on oldx.com. Her website, Bloccelerate.vc. And if you look at the portfolio, we didn't open this up, but there's just dozens and dozens of names, and I know I've heard of quite a few of these. So this is really good. Gelato's on there. Yeah. This is good. Ava Protocol. So thanks so much. So Kate, what we do for the rest of the show, it's totally up to you. If you can stick around, we're going to go through the top 10 or so, what we call Doots of the week. I don't know if you're familiar with how this works, but on Reddit.
I listened to your last podcast. Unfortunately, I do have to drop because I have another call, but
Totally
thank
fine.
you so much. Thank you so much for having me. This was great, and I hope to get some of my portfolio companies to join the podcast.
But please send them our way. It's same time every Friday, and we're booked pretty much through the end of February. We got 1 slot, 2 slots
we love
open
to
in
feature
March.
application teams, right? There's not that many podcasts today that actually try to feature Ethereum apps. Everyone's focused on senators and Bitwise and
we love talking to the up and comers. We want to hear from them.
Okay. Yeah, I'll send them your way. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Kate, Laurence, ladies and gentlemen, appreciate you stopping by. Have a great rest of your Friday. We'll talk to you soon. All right. Good deal. Thank you. That was fun. Always fun. I got to fix this. Look at my head's all squishy here. You already knew that, though. This thing's all jacked up. Apologize. I woke up and my OBS was kind of acting kind of funky, but here we are, dailydoots.com. It is time to move on down the list, curated by our very own, the A-Word. Thank you so much to Tricky Troll and A-Word for putting this together. Let's start off, and I never read these ahead of time. All right, Epic Trader. User Epic Trader explains Ethereum's issuance policy. No, the idea isn't actually to be a deflationary currency. I'm going to restart that. No, the idea isn't actually to be a deflationary currency. Ethereum has always had a goal of reaching a minimal viable issuance, but it's not exactly clear what that amounts to. It seems somewhat likely that Ethereum will make one more adjustment to the issuance model, but probably that will be the last change, if any, is made. Having the network issue ETH is what upholds the security of the network. This is how validators get paid. The fact that Bitcoin will stop issuing BTC is actually a huge potential problem, because this is where the miners get like 95% of their income from, the rest being from transaction fees. So while it seems attractive to have zero inflation on the surface, it's actually not a good design for the long term. The reason why ETH is burned in the first place is due to the transaction gas fee market. By burning the transaction fees, it's impossible for stakers to send free transactions and manipulate the gas fee market or accept payments in other currencies. Right now, there's a maximum possible theoretical issuance of around 1.5% annually, but that would require for every single ETH to be staked. And that's before considering the amount that gets burned. The actual current level of inflation is around 0.9%, with around 35 million ETH staked, before accounting for burned ETH. After accounting for burned ETH, the inflation is pretty close to zero. Yes, preach. That is such a good write-up. That's very succinct and simple for anyone to understand. The the whole fee burning stuff. We have a zero inflation pretty much. Well said.
Yeah, I wish it was negative 5%. I wish it was an inflationary thing though, right? I wish we had more transaction demand. I wouldn't mind another summer of 120 GUI transaction fees on mainnet, just cooking away.
Yeah,
wouldn't that be fun? Get back to those days where it was like somebody
pay
would
$100 transactions. Yeah, I'm down. Let's do it. I would be okay with this. Everyone can hate on ETH for being too congested. It's like New York City. Like no one drives in New York City. It's too congested.
That's a fact. Jeez. Whew. My first time driving in New York City was in the back of an Uber. That was scariest. That was one of the scariest days of my life. We went all the way downtown, lower Manhattan in an Uber. And I was just like, I don't know, babe, are we going to live through this? We'll see. It was like a roller coaster. All right. User Rhythm of ETH shares their thoughts on how L2s aren't parasitic to Ethereum. I got to try to open this up on old Reddit so I can see these Doots scores. I got to fix my setting. Duder number 5. Yeah, I was going to say Rhythm of ETH is a relative newcomer to the Doots list. I think considering L2's parasites is a very superficial view of Ethereum. I understand why someone just looking at the price action might think that's the case. Ethereum is reinvesting its profits since 6 to 8 months ago, and it's not giving the speculators any big gains nor dividend. If we've learned something these past few years is that you cannot have an expensive cryptocurrency and a thriving decentralized economy at the same time. This is a balance that needs to be achieved. Before the ETH ticker rises, gas prices need to go down massively. This is what blobs are achieving. If L2s were paying the fees they used to pay back in the beginning of 2024, no one would complain about them being parasitic. But then Ethereum would still be mostly 14 transactions per second layer 1 with serious scaling problems, and no one would use it. All will gravitate towards Solana and others. The blob market is ridiculously cheap, and that's good. It's good because the amount of L2 activity keeps growing 30% monthly, and once blob fees from that increased activity start burning ETH at a decent pace, and once we get based rollups, there's really no stopping ETH. Good write-up, Rhythm of ETH. Canadians misspelled. I remember this username as being misspelled.
He's someone I think we picked up with the merge. He's definitely a new account, and he's very active. Glad to have him.
Good. Let's check out the Doots score here, and we'll make sure.
I was saying Rhythm of ETH.
Rhythm of ETH is, Canadians 1993 is a Duder number 10. Also relatively robust, but yeah, Rhythm of ETH I think is a merge account now that you mentioned it, because I think I remember approving their account age. I'm curious their account age. I'm going to go back to it because now you got my interest, because I remember pulling them out of AutoMod. Let's see if I mouse over. Let's just go to their, December 11, 2024, this person has already made it on the Doots daily 5 times with an account that is from December. Boy, you talk about coming in hot. That's fantastic. Good job, Rhythm of ETH. Canadians 1993 discusses the real fight, which Ethereum is one of the few chains still fighting. The fight against true decentralization is real and has increasingly been manifested through the constant and relentless coordinated attacks on ETH and Ethereum over the years. The current market, such as rising rates and fear of inflation, are, of course, a key factor in the recent PA, but that combined with the negative sentiment artificially created only exacerbates downward pressure. BTC is not a threat to USG anymore. It's de facto controlled by it. Miners are now large corporations, mostly concentrated in the US and subject to strict regulatory compliance and government oversight. And now, so are holders via the likes of BlackRock and MicroStrategy. You can almost trace the change in sentiment for ETH back to the day of the merge. Moving away from proof of work really pissed off some people. Alt ones are also a de facto controlled by USG, with Silicon Valley VCs and limited nodes and validators, mostly in the US, all regulated and subject to USG oversight. It's my biggest and single concern with ETH and Ethereum. It is too good at what it aims to be, a true instrument of change and decentralization. It is the most disruptive, the most cypherpunk. That's what brought me to this space in the first place. The gains were just a reward for my conviction. My hope is that this conviction, this cypherpunk ethos, grabs hold of the narrative once again. Otherwise, it was all for naught. P.S. You can replace USG by any nation state or, quote, the man, but USG controls the world's financial system and thus likely the main culprit. All right. And then it says, edit, glad to be schooled by our dear friend Logri. Let's see here. I want to go to the comment and open this up and see if there's a response, Logri, or is he replying to you? Seek full discussion? No.
He had said cyberpunk. I just kind of like crossed it out, right?
Gotcha. Yeah,
it's actually the cypherpunk movement, because otherwise cyberpunk is usually dystopian.
Gotcha. Okay, good. Yeah, he had 56 upvotes on that. User Skew is thinking about the most common narrative at play here. I got to open him up on old Reddit. Let's see what his Duder score is. He is a Duder number 12. Skew is thinking about the most common narrative and the counter play. Towards the end of last year, almost everyone seemed to be working on the assumption. Bullet 1, pump in the first half of January, anticipation for pro-crypto Trump presidency, and bullet number 2, dump after the inauguration, as expectation meets reality of not a lot actually happening. Sell the news. Well, I think because that idea became so embedded into many people's minds, a lot of people's strategy had them selling in early January during what they assumed would be a pump season. As markets often do, we are seeing the opposite to what was expected. As everyone tries to front-run the expected post-inauguration sell-off and is taking profits now, air quote, before it's too late, causing the current sell side pressure. Since we are all selling off now, I expect that means there is a chance that this is the widely expected sell-off, and it's just come a little early. In that case, sellers could actually be exhausting themselves already, and we may see the bottom out and turn around faster than expected too. Sentiment also already seems very bad, which is incredible. Given that BTC is still over 90K and ETH is still above 3K, a level it hasn't historically spent much time above. The longest time Ethereum spent over 3,000 USD was 15 weeks. In this current run, we are on week 11. If this is the expected sell-off, I'd say everything is actually holding up remarkably well when measured against comparable sell-offs in prior cycles. It's amazing how quickly people forget how painful these sell-offs can be, and I'd still argue we are seeing far less pain than we experienced last cycle when we climbed the wall of worry in the early bull market. All eyes are now on whether those 90K BTC and 3K ETH levels hold, which are likely to be seen as psychologically significant. This will tell us a lot about where we may be going next. And I remember this comment. I read this. I even said it right here. I remember reading this and I put, this resonated with me. Yes, absolutely resonated. It's like, guys, we're over 3K, like, just be patient, and buy. If you got any dry powder, this is fine. Okay. Not investment advice, blah, blah, blah. Perfect. User You Got Trisomy 21 compares the cost of banks versus Ethereum for remittances. And You Got Trisomy 21 is a Duder number 17. All right. I probably wasted my time in the art investing subreddit trying to explain. I'm surprised you didn't get banned there. Trying to explain why Stablecoin remittances are a huge use case that even crypto haters could appreciate, since many of them aren't aware of the Ethereum stablecoins and just associate crypto with Ponzi Bitcoin because BTC has no utility. But I went through with it anyway, doing a step-by-step write-up, even logging into my bank account to simulate a wire transfer, etc. It actually even surprised me a bit to see how much cheaper it truly was. This is a use case that every normie and crypto hater should be able to get behind, because they don't even have to ever buy or touch any crypto asset, ETH included, outside of stablecoins, which they won't even have to hold for longer than 1 minute between sending and swapping back to fiat. And they'd be able to greatly benefit from it in terms of fees saved. See my comment here for the full write-up. TLDR, as of right now, a U.S. person can pay 25 cents to send $5,000 USD to someone in Europe, who would then receive 4,883 euros after day one. If that person instead decides to send 5,000 USD via Chase Bank, just using the largest U.S. bank as an example, to someone in Europe, they would only receive 4,763 euros after 1 to 3 days. Sending stable coins would be faster and save you 120 euros in fees compared to the traditional banking route.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. Good stuff. User J8JWeb asks ETH holders why we still hold ETH and get a great response from Timbuck9, Nomadine Europe. I think that's a duder number one, and user Phi Marhal. Let's open this up and look at these scores here. Good. So the original poster, J8JWeb, is a duder number 2. Phi Marhal is a 77. And yep, I was right. Nomad in Europe is a duder number 1. Let's look at this. J8JWeb says, since you're here, I assume you think ETH is either number 1, superior or comparable an investment to BTC, or 2, a long shot that's worth a punt. Well, which is it most for you? Do you genuinely think ETH will catch up with or outperform BTC this cycle as it has in all previous cycles? Or has the landscape shifted so much in the past 4 years that this is now highly improbable? My patience has really been tested this cycle for some reason. Perhaps it's because six-figure BTC no longer feels remotely underpriced, and ETH is still down here near 3K when it ought to be closer to 6 or even 7K. Timbuck9 responds, the Ethereum ecosystem and capability is clearly far superior to Bitcoin, so I'm in it for the very long term. That said, the sheer amount of money behind the industry supporting Bitcoin is vast, and they have a vested interest in muddying the waters for anything that can be genuine competition. The big players employ teams of developers and marketeers who promote anything that can be hyped into a, air quote, Bitcoin killer. Oh, the big players, there they are. This sucks investment away from actual threats, who then find themselves floundering, wondering why they aren't getting anywhere while BTC continues to rise. The Bitcoin killers, they lose momentum when their owners pull the plug. Small prediction, Solana will collapse in March this year under a huge sell-off from their VC backers. Well, Nomad in Europe responds, neither. I simply think it has become one of the most widespread, if not most widespread chains. It has the early comers advantage plus significant momentum, and I think the L2s have addressed a lot of the shortcomings, such as high gas fees. From a developer's perspective, there is a huge ROI on learning Solidity and EVM. From a trader's perspective, I don't see ETH as appealing as, say BTC or the high volatility Solana coins. Phi Marhal, OG, both, he says, both. But also a third one, the principle of asymmetry. The more undervalued ETH is, the greater the upside. Consensus investments make consensus money. What's the path forward for BTC? Shilled by the President of the United States? propped up by the MicroStrategy Ponzi, the Tether Ponzi. It's not as if Bitcoin will become useful and will eventually run out of greater fools. Miners still drain billions of dollars from their ecosystem. Bitcoin still has no plan for economic security in the long run. What's the path forward for ETH? Ethereum being actual tech that serves a purpose. It could very much scale to planetary needs and deliver a service the world is willing to pay a self-sustaining amount of fees for. We have contingencies for quantum computers and most other threat vectors. The main risk for Ethereum is that somehow we never manage to communicate that value to the wider world and can't justify high valuation. This would be a bizarre outcome because we already see consistent growth and adoption. I think it's only unlikely through some weird black swans the AI singularity happens for real and we all turn into space communists with one giant impartial computer to administrate us all.
Boom, boom, boom.
Trust in this ecosystem is absolute and money becomes obsolete. Or World War III nukes us back to the Stone Age. Well, that's a level of black swanning. Any of those would kill Bitcoin as well anyway. So the final equation to this, do I want to add more risk? Or do I want more risk and less upside like BTC? Or less risk and more upside with ETH? I think Bitcoin only makes sense as an investment for a pure mercenary who believes blockchain is a sham, or at least thinks it'll never live up to the promises. Our mercenary wants to get out at the right time this cycle and kiss crypto goodbye. With that outlook, perhaps one could bet on Bitcoin. But even with that mindset, still feels like buying at the top of a pyramid. Good luck to the brave Merc. Me, I'll find something easier. Very good. Nice write-ups. Good responses. Good luck to you, J8J Webb, and I'm glad you made it to our weekly show. User Logri the Bard. I gotta get a drink of water for this one. Here we go. User Logri the Bard, top 10 duder, tells us about the future of AI and crypto. Holy crap. Here we go. Gonna call up the AI real quick. All right. Agents today are just a parlor trick of an open source model plus some prompt engineering integrated with a Twitter bot. But AI agents can and will be so much more than that. When we make fine-tuning as a service and build AVSs that offer this to end users affordably, people will be able to build their own personalized models for anything they like. Make a model that grades your math homework and serves as your tutor. Make a model that diagnoses cancer from MRI scans. Make a model that knows all your preferences and offers recommendations for shows to watch, things to repurchase on your usage schedule, etc., without being diverted to inferior products, because that makes Amazon more money. Make a model that fights Ethereum FUD so you don't have to type out long replies as you engage with crypto Twitter's trolls for fun. Eventually, we'll attach something like Sentient AI's billing approach to the model so they can be open source without forfeiting the revenue rights to the model indefinitely. Then anyone will be able to host it for you for a negotiated revenue split. Then we can tokenize the model at the outset and reward those doing the training compute and those doing the data labeling by issuing them tokens that provide a claim upon the eventual revenue of the model. We'll wrap all of this in depend so anyone can contribute compute to either train the model or host it on an inference market. We'll add TEE plus snarks to prove the computation was done honestly. We'll attach T's to MPC to protect your privacy. Lastly, we'll make DAOs that govern the data set in the model is trained on, so we can have community-run fine-tuned models that those communities can monetize at the inference layer rather than the output layer. What you're seeing with AI agents now is overhype. Using blockchains to organize efforts to create impactful fine-tuned models is underrated. Blockchains help us excel at human coordination. Crypto and AI is more coordinated and hopefully value-aligned AI layer in the long term than is likely to be offered by for-profit companies. Nice job, Logri. That's a big one. That's a good one. Good one.
It was actually a response to someone had like 5 upvotes. Barely got seen.
That was a response to somebody?
Yeah.
God, even your responses. Look at this. See full discussion. Single comment thread. Let's look at it. The original was by Flintstone9. I don't recognize this name. Let's just open it up on old. Yeah, this is somebody who's obviously a M.E.R.G.E person on our Ethereum. Giving you both upvotes. Does anyone else think that whole response was to Flintstone9, who said, does anyone else think crypto agents and their tokens are overhyped? From what I've seen, most seem to be a little more than wrappers for ChatGPT or a few APIs. They don't strike me as particularly groundbreaking, aside from the novelty of them issuing and interacting with coins. I'd also bet there's still a fair amount of human involvement driving things behind the scenes. That's actually a really great conversation prompt that they gave you, Logri. Yeah, nice response. Good job. Well done, man.
This is Sparta!
All right. Harog. Oh, freaking legend. Harog. Harog's been around the block a few times. If you want to follow somebody else that has their head on their shoulders, Harog is up there at Deuter143. That's a top 10 account right there. Harog updates us on the latest Pectra hard fork date estimates, as well as what to expect with the upgrade. Here we go. During today's all core devs call, the timeline for the Pectra fork has been discussed. The plan is to have the following schedule. February 3rd, publish new client releases for the upgrade by this date. February 12th is a Sepolia fork. February 19th, the Haleshki fork. And if all works well, we'll get a mainnet fork in March. Get your POAPs ready. Mainnet fork in March. That sounds awesome. Looking forward to another great upgrade. Exact block numbers for the upgrade will be determined in the coming days. The source, according to Christine D. Kim on X.com. And then Harag says, let me try to answer this. Double the amount of blob space, more rollups, cheaper transactions on them, scaling that actually works, reduction of the number of validators, but still keeping the same network security. Ethereum needs fewer resources. Scaling L1 will get easier, will take some time to play out. Account abstraction for your old addresses, same convenience as smart contract accounts, will take some time to play out. You can exit your validator from your withdrawal address, making LSTs much more trustless, and increases costs for certain transaction types, which does not interfere with the normal user, but allows for a much more massive scaling of the layer 1. Yeah, good. Love it. Let's go. I'm excited. All right, and finally for this week, Benito 2030, another freaking banger legend on Ethereum Reddit here. They've been climbing up the ranks. Deuter 160. If you scroll away, it says Benito 23 introduces our Ethereum to the Ethfinance community delegates. Interesting. All right. If you scroll all the way down in the Daily Doots, you'll find a delegates section. Let's go look at it. Let's go look at it. There you go, right there. Look at all these heroes right here. Got it? So this is dailydoots.com, and then you can scroll all the way down at the bottom and see the delegates. If you scroll all the way down, okay, you can see those delegates. Back in the Ethfinance days, we started organizing and coordinating as a Reddit community because there were some initiatives where we agreed that some things should happen. When one non-censoring relay went offline because of the inability to monetize, we agreed to get the ASTIS relay some funding via Optimism grants. Or should not happen. For example, LDO applied for the, I believe it was STEP in the Arbitrum ecosystem. We coordinated and agreed to voice our concerns about it and vote against them, receiving ARB tokens even to even further increase our market share. Anyway, after that, we thought we could take this even further and plan for new airdrops, find Ethfinance delegates before TGE, and delegate to community members when claiming was possible. This happened, for example, StarkNet, ZK Sync, and Scroll. There are many positive effects. You have a rather easy way to reach out to your delegate, either by tagging them or via direct messages. Delegates like user Bob Rossi, that dude's amazing, have made regular governance updates to keep the community posted about proposals, discussions, etc. in the different ecosystems. And if there are topics around any a layer 2 or so, even without tagging, delegates will usually comment and share their thoughts and gather feedback if they are undecided. Does this mean that after the merge, all Ethereum members now should delegate to someone from the list? Of course not. You are free to choose any delegate. Become a delegate. And if you are a delegate, I'm sure we can add you to the list as well. But if you still have some L2 tokens or even bought more in the past couple of months and haven't delegated those yet, you might consider one of the people from the community. And if you have questions, I'm sure we can activate most delegates to do a quick intro, answer questions, and share the ideas about why they are still a delegate. And there you go. That is awesome. Benito 2030. Well, you know what else is awesome? You're awesome. Thanks for hanging out here. This is episode 95. Do you know what's getting ready to, does anybody know what's getting ready to happen in 2 days? First of all, you got to go get your POAP if you haven't done it. But there's something very significant in terms of this podcast that's taking place in the next couple of days. Anybody got any ideas out there what I might be talking about? Why don't we just let's just go to the Daily General today. All right. This is pretty incredible to me. As a person who founded this whole damn Doots thingy, our boy Tricky Troll, I want to make sure everybody knows this. That dude is on Doots number 998. He has 2 more days to go. He's had a little bit of help from the substitutors. I can count on my fingers and toes how many times somebody has stepped in to help him. I'm telling you, the guy is a machine. Tricky Troll, dude, thanks so much for all of your work. I can't believe we're hitting this milestone now of 1,000 Doots on those daily threads. And I feel like it's like this merge getting over to our Ethereum has just been so freaking good. It's good for our Ethereum, most importantly, but it's been a rejuvenation of spirit within the Ethfinance community. Like, we have a focus now, and I feel like we're talking to a whole new crowd. Like, we were talking to ourselves in our bubble, and it was fine, and we could pull Doots out of that. But now we're really teaching people, and I think the Doots effort that Tricky Troll puts in on these daily Doots is just nothing short of amazing. Find me anything in the crypto world that is a public good that is done almost totally out of pocket, and it takes a lot of time. That's a daily thing, and I know how long it takes to put those dailies together. It takes a good 20 minutes anyway. And big thanks to the A-Word too for doing the weekly thing and helping to keep that roundup going, and Hani Abu with the website. Like, this whole merge thing has just been just incredible, and I'm the luckiest one in the group. I do a lot of work behind the scenes, making thumbnails and publishing this and everything like that. But it's really a labor of love, and you guys really make it fun, and we're really on the trajectory going up and to the right with getting interesting guests that nobody knew existed before, and now they know, and just kind of throws out the little lassos out there and gets people connected. And glad to be helpful, and glad you guys are also helpful in the daily too. We got such a good culture, and I'll put it in your ear if you're listening to this, that I want to take people that have made the Doots list. Let's say you've been on the Doots list, more than 10 times. I want to take all of those people and put them into as an approved user on Ethfinance or on our Ethereum. The reason being is I've noticed the auto moderator on our Ethereum is very vast because of the sheer numbers of spam accounts that come in, and we got to kind of hand select words, and sometimes it's like, oh man, this duder number 35 got caught up in auto mod because he mentioned a word that's on our auto mod blacklist. And so we're going to do 2 things. We're going to We're just going to make a lot more people just approved users. You don't have any, like, there's like 0 people that even have a negative note on them that are on the Doots list that have, let's say, more than 10. And so it would just cut out a lot of people getting caught in auto mod. Because imagine, like, you take somebody like Man in the Crypto Suit or Benito 2030 or Logri the Bard, and they write this thing that's very meaningful. It's a well thought out response to a new person. It gets snagged on automod for a few hours, and then I don't, have a chance to come over right away and fix it because I'm doing other things. And that's kind of unfortunate because I feel like being on time and being able to keep people engaged in the conversation and keep those threads humping and pumping is just what we need to fix. So 2 things: more improved users, and I want to go through the auto mod list. There's a lot of phrases that were being used by spam accounts back in the ICO days and even like the NFT crazes that got picked up. And so they were like catchphrases that they had to put on the blacklist because they could tell that 50 accounts were coming in with, the same phrase. Well, it's a dead NFT project or a shitcoin that died years ago. There's no reason to have it in the auto mod. And then on top of that, making you approved users will also hopefully eliminate issues with a Reddit site-wide auto moderator that's also working. There's stuff that gets removed by Reddit that's totally out of our hands, and I always say it's drunk auto mod. We're sorry, drunk Automod. Automod got a little bit crazy. Well, anyway, that's that. Congrats on episode 95. Big shout out again to Kate Laurence from Bloccelerate for coming. Big shout out to Tricky Troll. He's going to be crossing the 1,000 mark this coming, actually Monday, it looks like, right? Or yeah, Sunday. Gosh, and what are we doing to celebrate? I haven't made a POAP. Anybody else make a POAP? Damn it. We might have to figure that out in hindsight. Well, anyway, that's it for this show. Thanks for subbing and smashing the bells. Even if you're not watching on YouTube, if you could open up that channel, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and we hope to see you again on the next episode. Stick around after the live stream because we continue the party in the hotel lobby on Discord for a bonus hour of popcorn. It's a fun place to let loose when the parents aren't watching on YouTube. Hi, Mom. On behalf of Ethfinance and the EV Maverick style on our Ethereum, my name is JT. Cheers and big hugs from Kansas City.